the late deer hunts, part 1, coming up next on the Journal. From the north, south, east, and west, from the woodland and plains and waterways, come challenges and thrills and excitement for every member of the wilderness family. These are our stories, our adventures from the wild places, both near and far. All of our hits and misses, the memories, our time spent living the wild life. Join us. Come past the streetlights. Step into the real world. The world of the Wilderness Journal. The Journal is underwritten by
The Ina Store, your Cadillac area Kubota dealer with a full lineup of Kubota tractors, utility vehicles, and equipment. For farm or food plot, it's the Ina Store in beautiful downtown Ina, Michigan. And by Mads Outdoor Products, a full-line Avalon dealer. Mads also features Featherlight trailers, livestock stalls and chutes, as well as service, winterizing, and storage, inside or out. Mads Outdoor Product, in the center of it all, Harrison and Cadillac, Michigan. And by
With over a century of experience in the Indiana and Michigan area, Reith Riley is a full-service asphalt paving company handling commercial, industrial, and privately owned paving projects of all sizes. To learn more about Reith Riley,
and by J&J Smoked Meats, makers of ready-to-go, high-protein, low-sugar snacks. At home, or the game, anywhere, and everywhere. J&J Smoked Meat Snacks.
and by viewers like you. Thank you. Hi friends, and welcome. Today we're headed out into Michigan's late December deer woods. You see, my grandson, Kyle Jr., is still holding a couple of deer tags, and he's made up his mind it's getting deep enough into the year that he's going to harvest buck or doe, doesn't matter, as long as it's a mature deer. Now, if you're a seasoned hunter here in Michigan, you already know you don't see a lot of mature deer moving around in the daylight, and if you do happen to spot one, well, let's just say they don't make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, they won't tolerate much in the way of you doing it either. So we got our stuff. We headed out to our good friend Mr. Charlie's. We were hoping we'd hang one of those tags, but to tell the truth, late season hunting, even though you can use a regular rifle in Mecosta County where we're hunting during the muzzleloader season, well, let's just say that, friends, it's never real productive. So I was hopeful. Yeah. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and Kyle Jr. is going out to try and fill a freezer right now. We sat in the deer blind that first afternoon. But after quite a few hours of watching, all we had seen was this one little button buck. He slowly picked his way across the edge of the field. And as we watched, it became clear, at least to Kyle, that we needed to try something different. That little button buck was the only deer we saw from the blind that evening. So Kyle decided the following day he wanted to go off reservation. He wanted to just go out and sit in the trees. We had seen some deer working behind us up on the hill, and he wanted to go out and try to set up on them, see could we get a little closer before it got too dark. And early that afternoon, I did see a couple of deer working their way down through the timber. I say I because, well, I was the one that saw that first group of deer. Some of us, well, let's just say some of us were looking elsewhere. Unfortunately, those deer never did come out into the field. What did show up was a big band of lake effect snow. And right in the middle of it, Kyle actually thought he saw a deer. but I couldn't see anything through that snow. Well, when Kyle finally did see a deer that evening, he acted as though it was a really good one. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it out there through all that snow, let alone get it on the camera. I just couldn't see anything. And to make matters worse, he had taken his eyes off it to look at me, and when he looked back, yeah, he couldn't find it either. It was snowing that hard, I don't know where that deer went. What I did know, though, is it was starting to taper off finally, and we did have a little bit of daylight left. And 20 minutes or so before dark, this little button buck walked out of the woods and started feeding on the alfalfa. We sat there motionless, not wanting to spook this deer and hoping that every time he threw his head up, he was looking at another deer coming. He was only about 80 yards away, plenty within range. Now all we needed was some of those other deer. But after a while, it was beginning to feel like all we were going to see was that button buck. And then, with only 10 or 15 minutes left of daylight, over on the edge, a couple of does. And one of them was certainly a shooter. She stepped out there and looked right at us. There we were, in the stare down. She was looking at us. Kyle was staring back at her. We didn't dare move. He didn't even dare lift his rifle. These deer were only 50 or so yards away. Any little mistake now and... Yeah, she saw us. What'd you say to her?
I don't know, really. Dang deer.
She didn't like the looks of something, did she?
No, she didn't. She was just staring over here the whole time. She didn't. I think she saw us and just didn't like it, so she told us.
She didn't get real spooky. She just said, nope, I'm not going out there.
Exactly.
We had been really close. That big doe at the edge of the trees, she was certainly a shooter. Unfortunately, I think she spotted us sitting there just about the time we spotted her, and we still needed her to take a few more steps out past the brush so Kyle could get a shot. Unfortunately, as you saw, she didn't do that. And when that little button buck even cleared the field after she ran off, well, let's just say I figured we were about done for the evening. Fortunately, I was wrong. Just as it was getting dark, back through the trees,
Right over that round bump with the snow on it.
I could see deer moving in a couple of places. An ear, a tail, sometimes the line of a back. I could see a number of deer slowly working their way across through the timber.
Right next to it.
It was starting to snow again and getting dark, but if these deer worked their way out to the edge, Kyle would still have time.
Looking right out at us.
And then finally, in the last 5 minutes of legal light,
See it? Both pretty small. that's what was running around in there. Keep your eye on that deer on the right. It's acting like something's chasing it. Yep, there's another deer back in there. I can see it moving. Comes another one in from the left. What they're looking at. Those are all pretty little deer.
The first three out were obviously young, but we could definitely see more deer back in the timber.
Yep, there's the buck. Told you something was chasing him.
What looked like at least a 2-year-old buck had stepped out into the edge of the field,
Can you tell how many points he's got?
but in the failing light, it was kind of tough to tell, was this a 6-point or a 7-point?
I don't know.
It needed to have 4 on one side to be legal, and I wasn't sure Kyle would take it anyway, but we needed to make up our mind. We were running out of literally the last few minutes of the day. As this buck stood there feeding, head on of course, I could see Kyle was struggling to tell, was this a legal deer or not? I was pretty convinced it had 4 small points on the left side, but it wasn't my tag, it wasn't my hunt. This was up to Kyle.
Another one coming. 3 does coming.
And to make matters more difficult, we were literally running out of time. We were down to like the last 5 minutes.
There's a bunch of deer over there. There's a bunch of deer right there. And that's a good doe right there on the right side. They're a real good one in the back.
I was counting down the minutes for Kyle. We only had 1 or 2 left. I was also trying to help him identify the different deer, but he was still waiting. He was wanting to see what else was going to walk out of those trees.
Man, there's another doe coming out too. They are just pouring out of there now.
And with more and more deer coming, all I could hear was the tick, tick, tick of the clock running out.
There's still deer coming out of there. That one that just walked out behind the buck's a real good doe. That might even be a legal buck. He's got 3 on one side. So if he's got a brown dye, that'd make him a 4 on one side.
And then finally, he decided there were no bigger bucks coming, that he would take a run at one of these big does. Unfortunately, when he finally made up his mind, it was past legal. It was only a couple minutes past, but it was past. And friends, out in our world is out.
Needed him to come out 2 minutes sooner. There's 13 deer right there in front of us.
Friends, when we hunt, we try to see all the deer. And seeing as how Kyle had tags in his pocket for both bucks and does, he certainly wanted to see if another buck was going to step out into that field with all those other deer. By the time he decided that first buck wasn't a shooter though, and he would take a run at one of the older does. Well, I had to tell him, buddy, legal shooting hours ended 3 minutes ago. 3 minutes, 3 hours, that's the way it is. When it's over, it's over. All we could do was sit there till total dark, sneak out, and yeah, come back and try again tomorrow. And on the morrow, mostly because of a change in the wind and an incoming snowstorm, we decided to move to the other side of the field, hopefully keep our wind at least crossing behind the deer. And just in case they decided to move, Kyle said we should get out there good and early. But so far, the only thing we were seeing was snowflakes. Friends, if you're not from Michigan, this is what we call lake effect. A band of snow can blow in and make it almost impossible to see, and then blow back out 20 minutes later and it'll be clear. And then blow right back in again. And that, in a nutshell, friends, is late season deer hunting here in Michigan. My friends, it was snowing so hard that afternoon, there were a lot of times we couldn't see the far side of the field we were watching. Fortunately, it did let up just before dark. I figured we had maybe 45 minutes of the day left, and as soon as it quit snowing, the deer started moving. They were all at once everywhere. Just as the snow let up, we could see deer working out into the far corner of the field. Kyle already had Whisper up on his shooting stick and ready. He wasn't going to make the same mistake, not 2 nights in a row. He whispered to me, as soon as I see any mature deer.
See him? Just wait, there's more coming. Look over there, there's more coming. There's another one coming.
There were already a couple of young deer out in the field, and we could see more deer working their way down the hill and across the creek.
There's another one coming behind that.
A little farther down the field, a lone deer walked out.
It's a pretty good group there. All 3 of those ones on the left look little.
There were deer coming from everywhere. Now all we needed was one, the right one, to get out in the open.
One coming out. The ones that are out in the open are all little, but there's 2 more coming. That's another little one. See how those are all the same size? They're all little guys. All 4 of those are little. Put the super far back. The far back one I can't tell yet. Oh, here comes some more.
After 15 minutes or so of watching, we had a number of does and yearlings out in the field. Now Kyle needed to decide which deer would he try for.
The one dead sideways feet. Like facing towards us on broadside. Yeah.
By my estimation, the main group of deer were out about 125 yards. There were a few more hanging back closer to the woods. But Kyle really didn't have a shot at one of those anyway, so I suggested he try for one of the bigger does out front in the open. We still had another 15 or 20 minutes of light, but I was fairly certain we'd seen all the deer, at least all the deer we needed to. Sooner or later, friends, you just gotta choose.
Can you see what that one deer's staring at? One in the middle staring to the left there. It's your choice. It's your deal. She's looking over here. I'll shoot him if you think it's okay. I'll shoot him if you think it's okay. I think it is. Yeah, I'm on her. You hit her. Keep your eye on her. Nice job, buddy.
Thank you.
I think you hit her.
Yeah.
It looked good to me.
It did. We should probably.
Quick, go over there and look before it gets dark.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
That sounds like a good plan.
All right, let's go.
Let's go.
Make sure your gun's on safe.
Well, it had looked to me like Kyle had made a good shot off of that steady stick, but now it was time to get up and walk that 120 yards and find out.
Got it? Yeah. Oh yeah. We got a good trail. Let's go find her.
Let's go find
All
her.
right, come on. Before it gets dark. Hey, ain't that it right there?
Yep. Yep, that's her right there.
Yeah. Nice job, buddy. She ain't just taking a nap.
Yes, she is.
You know what else you gotta do?
What, cross this creek?
I'll wait for you. Oh yeah. Make sure that's empty, right?
Yep.
Bolts open. I don't know how it could have gone better. The snowing so hard for a while we couldn't see, and then it let up, and
Yep.
we kind of had to crosswind them, and we got away with it.
Oh yeah, it was very lucky. They appeared out of nowhere. We couldn't really see, and then we saw a couple heads, and we're like, hey, there's deer.
Yeah, I say, you know, there's deer in front of you. You go, there is not. Even with the snowstorm, worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
got a nice deer. You know what I call? I think that's a 2x3.
Yep, just about.
You know what that means?
I don't know. What does it mean?
It means it'll fill 2x3 feet in a freezer. You're feeding the family, man. Good deal.
Thank you. Thank you, Wanda and Mr. Charlie, for letting me use their land to harvest.
Yeah, I mean, they've been so good to us. We've been very fortunate.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to make sure they get a piece of that, and everybody get a little winter,
Oh yeah. This is
little winter feed.
food for everybody.
You bet. Now you got some work to do. You better get on it.
I think we should.
All right, congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Kyle. You made an awesome shot off of that stick, and that doe will definitely fill at least 2 by 3 feet in the family freezer. Buddy, you are getting it done. My friends, the late season, it can be tough. There's not a lot of deer moving around, like I said, and those that are mighty cautious. Still, whether it's the last week of rifle or the black powder season or maybe late archery, they all have their charms as well as their challenges. But in my opinion, they're all worth going out and trying. And I absolutely can assure you, you're going to have better chance at filling a tag than you would sitting home on the couch. Hey, I hope we see some of you out there. I hope you're filling that late season tag, and maybe, just maybe, we'll bump into you. And if we do, well, you know we're going to stop and share that cup and a fire, maybe a deer story or two. And if I don't see you out there, friends, well, then you know we're going to be right back here so we can share another adventure from my wilderness journal.